Hi everyone, I'm Marija. I'm a Lovable ambassador, I'm a product manager, and I have been a software developer in my past life. I was writing Java for over 10 years and typing everything on the keyboard like old people do. Big thanks to Lazar for inviting me for this guest episode. He was guiding you through the entire course over the last 26 days, and I'm stepping in for day 27 to kind of connect the bigger pattern behind everything that you have been practicing. So here's the thing I want you to understand as we're wrapping things up. This whole thing was never about Lovable. It was not about vibe coding, and it's not about the tools. It's about how you think when you face a problem. People hear vibe coding and they're thinking shortcuts, laziness, vibes over rigor. But for me, it's something else entirely. I actually see it as the next level of abstraction of how we build software. And here's a bit of history for you guys. So, in the beginning, it was all about ones and zeros. In order to talk to the machine, you needed to speak the machine language, which was coded in ones and zeros, and it was very, very difficult to develop applications and to write code. But then things gotten a little bit easier as we introduced the higher level languages. So instead of writing all these zeros and ones, you could write something in computer code like in some A, B, C. It's a little bit weird, but you kind of understand that this might be a sum of two numbers, no? Anyways, next step, we have readable languages that really sound like a little bit like broken English. So Python, for example, would say def, greet, name, print, hello, name. It kind of sounds like English. You sort of already understand what's going on there. Next step, we have the low code and no code editors. Elementor, WordPress themes, drag and drop interfaces. So you're arranging some UI, you're filling out some text, you're changing the images, but you don't really write HTML, you don't really see the code. Vibe coding was the next natural step. So instead of using all these drag and drop interfaces, the step up to that game was to use your natural language, English, or any language that you speak, to create software. And that's where Lovable comes in. You can just write, create a dashboard with filters, charts, and CSV export, and it's just going to work out of the box. So it's not magic. We saw it coming. It was a natural next step. And of course, every level of abstraction has its trade-offs. So when we switched to low-level languages to higher-level languages, we lost a little bit of performance. And when we started using some ready-made code, we introduced a little bit of technical depth and some unused pieces of code. So every time we build on top of something, we give up a little bit of control and we exchange it for leverage. And that's always the deal. So vibe coding is just problem solving under new constraints. The constraints changed, but the fundamentals really didn't. And you still need to understand what you're building. You need to break down complexity. You need to make decisions and trade things off and actually make something that works. The difference is that now you have leverage. You can move faster and you can explore more options. And as a next developer, I can tell you that now you can build things in a couple of hours or in a day that would have taken me and my team months to complete. But faster execution doesn't mean less thinking. It actually means more thinking because you need to keep up with the AI. And it also means that thinking matters more. Thinking, judgment, and good taste. And although it might be that vibe coders have it easy, it's really that we're all working on the same problems. And I promise you, we'll be friends. Okay, so let's do a small recap. In the first 2 days, you learned that the ideas don't start with brainstorming, they start with friction. And then they become real through storytelling. The best ideas come from something that really annoyed you and annoyed you enough that you want to Google it and that you want to solve it. And friction alone is not enough. You need to understand the problem clearly. The better you understand the problem, the better the solution you're going to build. If you can't explain the problem in plain English, who's it for, why it hurts, and why it matters, no tool will help you. In day 12, for example, you learned about debugging and you understood that debugging isn't guessing. It's collecting evidence and collecting little pieces of information until you understand where the problem lies. Calmly iterate through your code base until you get to a solution, rather than typing fix this 1,000 times. Day 25 from Lucio, you learned that taste is built through comparison and not instinct. That taste comes from creating alternatives, comparing them, and then choosing deliberately. The future isn't AI picking the UI for you. It's generating options and you being the one to have the taste and the knowledge to figure out which one is better than others and which one is better for your users to select. Over the last 26 days, you have been practicing the same loop over and over again. Identify a problem, understand the constraints, design a system to solve it. Execute as fast as possible, as cheap as possible, as simple as possible. Review your work honestly. Does it work? Does it not work? Does it need fixing? Does it need polishing? Is it ready for actual users? And then decide deliberately. That's it. That's the whole thing. And every lesson you had is mapping back to that loop. Different topics, but a same pattern that is emerging. So a little bit of a backstory. I remember the exact moment where video games stopped being magic for me. As a kid, it felt alive, like the character is actually alive and jumping and moving and hitting a wall, and that it has a life of its own, right? But then at some point, I understood that the video games are just coordinates, and that there's an X, there's a Y, they are moving around, they're changing their X coordinates and their Y coordinates as they're jumping and moving forward. And there's no tiny brain inside the character, just math and rules. At first, it felt like the illusion broke, but then something better happened. I stopped seeing magic and I started seeing systems. And once I saw the system, it was not mysterious anymore. It was buildable. And if you have been following along, this might be the thing that's happening to you. So the magic isn't over, but let's give it a test. Okay, this is Uber. I bet you use this application or something really similar to it. So let's demystify Uber. I guess that before getting into vibe coding and building stuff, this was kind of like a mysterious thing. You don't know how it works. There's a map, there's a car, and it calculates somehow the distance, and there's some other applications that connect to your phone, but how does it all work, right? But now when you check it out, you see more than just an app that's meant for car sharing, right? And let's say I type in something like San Francisco Airport, and maybe a destination would be San Jose. And there it is. It's trying to find the best ride for you. And when you break it down a little bit, there is a map in the background. And on top of the map, there is an overlay with 2 dots. These are the points of, where I want to be picked up and where I want to be left off. And there's a line that's connecting to it. And it's not random. It's very intentional. It's actually the road where it's supposed to go. It figures out where to draw it. And on top of it, there is an overlay, a list of all the possible ways to share a ride. This must be connected to some kind of database, right? And this is actually connected to other people's phones who are also sending information to that very same database. And based on their X and Y coordinates, they're trying to find the closest ones to you so that, they don't have to drive halfway across the town to pick you up. So when you think about it, it kind of starts to make sense, and it has less and less of a magic and wonder and abstraction to it, and more you can see the patterns and the things that are connected on the screen and how they're interacting with each other. I would suggest that you take this as an exercise. Every time you're looking at some new cool application, maybe it's Spotify, maybe you're listening to music, maybe you're listening to some podcast or watching a movie, or maybe you're playing a video game, try to think, how would I build this? Can I build this better? Is there something with the UI that I really don't like? That will really help you understand how things work. You will gather ideas on what's maybe something cool that needs to be built, and you will also gather taste. What looks nice and what feels easy and what doesn't. So maybe you feel like I explained Uber too simply, and you're probably right. There's a bunch of problems that Uber solves. There's a roadblock, maybe figure out a different route. Maybe the driver cancels, so they need to figure out where's the next driver that they can send to you. Or maybe the driver doesn't appear at all and they need to issue a refund and give you back your money. So that's the pattern behind everything. That's software development. That's problem solving. So every time we hit a limitation, every time we find a new problem, we don't complain. We solve it. We find a system that removes the problem. So bringing it back to Lovable, here are some problems that you learned how to solve. If context gets lost, you know how to build documentation. And if there is a bug that you cannot solve, now you know how to do it step by step, how to investigate and how to figure it out. If the project accumulates debt, maybe it's time for a health check. Maybe it's time to remove something that's unused. That's the mindset. So that's what transfers. And when you think about it, AI will keep improving, context windows will grow, agents will run longer and get smarter, but there's always going to be a missing piece. There's always going to be something to work on, and there's always going to be a new constraint, a new gap that we need to bridge, a new piece of the puzzle to solve, and some new problem that we can bend our brains around. So if you can spot those gaps and design around them, you will always be effective. And that skill doesn't expire when the tools change. What are we leaving you with? So we're definitely not leaving you with a collection of prompts. We're not leaving you with shortcuts or templates or tricks. We are leaving you with a couple of really good things, I guess. One thing is judgment. So now you can look at a problem and figure out what is really hard about this problem and how do I approach it? And do I make a trade-off at some point, right? Is there something that I don't really need to build that way? Can I work around it somehow? And then we're leaving you with leverage. So you know how to multiply effort through systems, through documentation, through templates. And we are hopefully leaving you also with taste. You practice comparison, you made deliberate choices, you made decisions why this part should be kept and this one needs to go. So hopefully you now understand what's the difference between something that works nicely and something that really doesn't. And we're leaving you with a new way to think, and this way of thinking you can apply to any problem in software or outside of software and in any context. Before we drop off, I want to close this with this one thought, and that is just, I'm not going to over-explain it, it's just that good builders don't wait for perfect tools. They work with what they have and not against it. And before you move on, I need you to do one thing. Tomorrow is day 28, the capstone. Lazar asked me that I remind you that you need to take the quiz. Open the resources tab and complete the mindset quiz. It's not about memorizing the facts. It's about checking whether the mindset has actually shifted. And if you have been doing the work and following along through these 27 days now, it's probably going to be that the answers will feel obvious. And that is how you know that something really stuck and that you have a really deep understanding of what we have been working on for the past 27 days. You can't mark this day complete until you pass the quiz, and that's intentional because the quiz is the proof. Thank you so much for listening. Good luck with your quiz and keep on building. Bye.